guys, it's Victoria and welcome back to Femhead. Today I want to share with you Theo's 4-month update. He is 4 months this Friday, December 6th, which is crazy. I can't believe I have a 4-month-old. Today I have a lot of stuff to talk about, but the biggest thing is just going to be his weight and the kind of saga we went through recently with all of that. So he has been at a lower percentile since his first checkup. When he was born, he was 8 pounds 6 ounces, so he was a healthy big baby boy. But then he just, instead of doing the curve that you want to do, he was on his own little not as growing curve. So he wasn't gaining as much weight at this rate that they wanted. He was gaining weight, but not as much as he was supposed to. So he was 62nd percentile at birth, and then he dropped to the 14th percentile at his 2-month checkup. He was the 4th percentile at his 3-month checkup. So he was not going up, sort of thing. And we weren't super concerned because we're okay, maybe he's probably going to be a lower percentile in weight because both Michael and I are slimmer people. It would be weird, I think, for us to have, a big juicy chunky baby. It seemed like he was eating enough. It seemed like I was making enough milk because every time I pumped, I would get 3 to 5 ounces depending on the time of the day. He always seemed content and happy after his feeds, and he had started sleeping longer stretches at night. So all signs pointed towards he was okay. Developmentally, he was great. He was hitting all of those milestones of things that he was supposed to start doing. We thought it was maybe just a matter of how much he was getting each feeding, so they had me go in for a weighted feed at a breastfeeding group at the end of October, and he drank 3 ounces. I was feeding him every 2.5 to 3 hours at that point. I can't remember what percentile he hit. She was like, okay, let's try, and when I say she, I'm talking about our pediatrician, let's try feeding him every 2 hours. And so that next day I busted my butt feeding that baby every 2 hours. And I'm we're gonna go in and he's gonna be so fat and just chunky, and I'm, gonna be able to pat myself on the back. The next day he woke up and threw up his entire first feed. And I thought, that's weird. Maybe just, probably just a fluke thing. Threw up his entire second feed. And I was like, uh-oh, I think something's wrong with him, because he had started dry heaving. And so we contacted our pediatrician, and she was like, yeah, doesn't sound good. Bring him in, we'll run some tests to rule more problematic things out, but we think it's probably the stomach bug, which isn't great because, I don't know, something about your baby getting sick is terrifying. Something about them forcefully throwing up is terrifying. Being super diligent about them eating max every 3 hours to them not eating in hours and hours and hours is terrifying, because you're he's gonna starve to death. So we went in, did some tests to rule out other things, and came to the point after just a day of being at the hospital that it was the stomach bug. But at that point he had eaten for 12 hours and he was dehydrated. He still couldn't keep anything down, so we ended up spending a night in the hospital so he could get an IV, and just kind of keep an eye on him, make sure he was getting rehydrated, that he could start keeping down feed. So slowly but surely he started keeping down an ounce, another ounce, and so we were able to come home. While we were there at the hospital, we met with a speech therapist and a dietitian, which was very helpful, and I wouldn't have ever thought about that. I had actually had an appointment with the lactation consultant that following Monday, but we kind of had a plan in place, so I canceled that lactation consultant appointment, but I think I'm going to reschedule it. So what the dietitian said was, we want him eating 32 ounces over a 24-hour period. And so I want him eating 4 ounces every 3 hours. And she said actually feeding him every 2 hours was actually worse. Feeding him more frequently, trying to get more calories in, was worse because he may have been burning more calories than he was taking in from the energy of eating. So she said, I want every 3 hours, 4 ounces. We had a speech therapist come up instead of a lactation consultant, because she was going to look at how he was sucking and swallowing and all of that, which I didn't know they could do. I always thought you would just automatically went to a lactation consultant. And I had my Spectra bottles with us. I had my Spectra pump with us. I needed to pump because I had not fed him all day. My boobs were engorged. I leaked through this sweater while we were in the hospital. So I had a pump. So we were just feeding him from the bottle because we wanted to, control, okay, just giving him an ounce rather than my boobs exploding into him and making him throw up because he couldn't keep stuff down. So she saw it and she was like, he's using too much energy to eat. So she recommended getting a slightly faster flow nipple for the bottles, because she wanted a suck, swallow, breathe, suck, swallow, breathe. And he was doing 3 sucks, swallow, breathe sort of thing. The conclusion was he was putting out more energy than he was taking in. And so we needed to be very diligent and focused on how many ounces and calories and everything he was getting. So anyways, the next day or the next 2 days, we were trying to get him to that 3-hour mark of eating 4 ounces, but he is like a 2.5-hour eater. That's where he's happiest. So he'd wake up hungry at 2.5 hours and then be pissed for half an hour because I wouldn't feed him. So our pediatrician was like, yeah, you can feed him every 2.5 hours and it's okay if he eats, you know, slightly less, like 3.5 ounces. But this boy was hungry, and so he was eating like 4 or more ounces every 2.5 hours, which in the end was great because we needed to get some weight back on him. I was exclusively pumping and bottle feeding, well, the week and a half following getting out of the hospital, because we wanted to see exactly how much he was getting. We were going in to get weight checks every couple of days with him, and he was gaining weight, but he wasn't gaining as much weight as he needed. Like, I think our first appointment back, like 2 days after we got out of the hospital, he had lost half an ounce. And I was just frustrated at this point because I was exhausted. I was pumping every 2.5 hours, feeding him every 2.5 hours, which meant I had no time to myself to do anything other than just take care of him, which I'm a mom. That's fine. That's what I have to do. But I was exhausted. And so to see that he had lost half an ounce after that was really just got to me. So we started fortifying my breast milk, which essentially, like, I was trying to like Google what this meant, and essentially it just means adding a little bit of formula to your breast milk to up the calorie amount. Breast milk is around 20 calories an ounce, and by adding certain amounts of formula, you can up it to 22 calories an ounce, 24 calories an ounce, all the way up to like 28 calories an ounce, depending on what your pediatrician and everyone decides. She wanted 24 calories an ounce for him. Now that I was exclusively pumping, I started realizing that I was only pumping like 3 to 3.5 ounces every 2.5 hours. And so I started freaking out because I didn't have much of a stash built up, because I'd always thought, I'm always with him. If I need to leave him with someone, I'll just pump a bottle for him. And so I wasn't making it a priority to build up a stash of my breast milk, which I regret, and I will definitely, like, in the future do more to build up a stash. Like, I'm already working on building up a stash for him in the future, and like future children, I will do the same thing, have more of a stash on hand, because you never know when something like this is going to happen and you're going to blow through all of your breast milk. So I wasn't pumping enough for him to eat. My stash was slowly dwindling, and it finally came to the point to where I ran out of milk and I wasn't pumping enough milk for him, and I had to give my baby formula. And I was already fortifying his milk at this point, so he's already getting formula. And let me tell you something, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I somehow expected and built it up into my brain to be this much bigger thing, like if and when I had to give my baby formula. I was expecting him, like the first time I had to give him just straight formula, to be like, oh, what is this crap? Like, this isn't the pure breast milk of my mother. But he didn't even skip a beat and drank it like it was breast milk. And I was like, you little fart, like you can't even tell the difference, can you? So yeah, I have been fortifying breast milk, supplementing with formula to top them off of what I don't produce to get to that 4 ounces. And he has been a hungry little hippo and wants more than 4 ounces. And so I obviously don't want to like gorge him, but I want him to be taking in a reasonable amount of milk and calories, depending on like where he is to where he's happy. I will offer him at least 4 ounces, if not like 4.5 to 5 ounces. And I should say, like, I am not a medical professional. I'm not a pediatrician. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a lactation consultant. Like, this is literally just what happened to us. So if you're experiencing something similar, obviously talk to your people that are in control of your baby's health, and don't take my word for it. So I've been working to build back up my supply, my stash, and all that jazz. But the good news is we went back in after it had been like 5 days since his last weight check, and that baby boy gained 10.5 ounces in 5 days, which is incredible. Like, he finally cracked 12 pounds. And he is back on to like the percentile chart. He's like the 2nd or 3rd percentile, but he's not like below the 1st percentile, which he was for about a week, just because of the stomach bug and everything. Oh, I should mention, while this all was happening, 2 days after we got back from the hospital, I woke up and was vomiting my life away. So I had gotten the stomach bug. So here I am trying to pump every 2.5 hours, feed him every 2.5 hours, not making enough milk, then getting dehydrated because I can't keep anything down. And that was a very stressful day. Like, I was miserable. I was so sick. My mother-in-law came over and I literally for several hours would just wake up to pump. I would hand her the milk that he was supposed to feed and she would feed him, put him down, change like all that stuff until I started feeling better. And so that was super helpful because I don't know how I would have done it. Like, I felt so miserable. So that definitely impacted my supply. And I think that was around the time that I ran out of my stash because I was so just dehydrated because I was sick that day that I had to pull from my stash even more. But everyone is healthy again. He is back on track, gaining weight, and where his height percentile is around like the 30th percentile. So she thinks that we're gonna be able to get him up to that, and that's gonna be his curve. He's awake. So like I said, formula is not the end of the world. Like, don't beat yourself up if you have to give your baby formula. It's not a contest. Like, no one is gonna show up at your house with a giant check if you exclusively breastfeed or give your baby breast milk. Feed your baby. In my mind, I kind of compared it to, it's like having an all-natural, unmedicated vaginal birth. Like, that's the thing that everyone strives for. But at the end of the day, if you have to get an epidural, if you have to get a C-section, like, congratulations, you still had a baby. And it's kind of like that. Everyone says like breast milk is better for your baby, and I agree with that, and I want my baby to be as breast milk fed as possible, but I also want him to gain weight and be healthy. So that's where we're at right now. Exclusively pumping is hard work. My sister exclusively pumped for my nephew's like first year of life, and I honestly don't know how she did it. Like, it is so demanding and draining, especially when you have to do it through the night as well. I was running on empty for a long time. I think I posted stuff to Instagram of like me just looking miserable in the morning pumping. Like, I looked rough. How it will work is because he was fed every 2.5 hours and he's awake for like an hour and a half to an hour 40, I would try to pump when he was napping, and then I would get like maybe 30 minutes to myself before he would wake up again. If that, like maybe 15 minutes, and then he would wake up. I would feed him, you know, take care of him and play with him while he's awake, put him back down, pump again, get like 15-30 minutes to myself. And there was just like, it was just enough time for me to just like collapse for a little bit, and they'd be like, okay, I gotta do it again. And it was a lot of work. Like I said, I'm not an expert. What I think was happening was he was eating like 3 to 3.5 ounces, which is enough for him to be like content and happy, but not enough for him to be putting on the weight he was supposed to be putting on. So he wasn't getting the number of calories and ounces that he needed over a 24-hour period. And then when he got sick, he didn't have any cushion in the weight department, and so that's what like kicked him over the edge. He has always been like a very happy baby, but since getting him to that 32-ounce mark a day, he has been like vibrant and alive. He's hit new milestones. Like, he just rolled over the other day. He's babbling, he's cooing, he's smiling. Like, he's always been a happy baby, but he is so much more like alive and happy right now. And I think it's because he just wasn't getting enough food. While this was all happening, like late at night one time when I was feeding him, I saw an article about this woman whose first baby died because unknowingly wasn't getting enough food. And there was no signs pointing to him starving, but he ended up starving because he wasn't getting enough food. And it was just a weird thing to see at that point. Obviously, I just want my baby to have food and be happy. He's up there like cooing and babbling and being freaking cute. So we're happy because he's gaining weight again. And if we can keep him on track and get him to 30 percentile, like, that would be so awesome. So at this point, I am able to go between pumping and feeding him a bottle to breastfeeding him and topping him off. I just offer him, if I have breast milk, I'll offer him like an ounce or 2, or if I don't have any breast milk, I'll offer him an ounce or 2 of formula, just to make sure he is getting that 4 ounces and he is like full after each feed. I am fortifying my breast milk, so it's 24 calories. We are making the formula 24 calories, so just make sure he's getting in extra calories where we can. I'm hoping my body continues to get the message to keep producing more and more milk so I can meet his demands of milk of what he needs to get and slowly phase out the formula. But until then, I am perfectly okay with giving him formula and fortifying and all that sort of stuff. I just want my baby to gain some weight, you know. I've started offering him more than 4 ounces because I'm cutting out one of those nighttime feeds so he can get back to just waking up once per night and then hopefully just sleeping through the night from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. He needs to get those calories in during the day, so he obviously needs to drink more. Our pediatrician also recommended getting a baby scale, which is supposed to be delivered today. I just got one off of Amazon. I hope it works. That way we can just keep track of his weight on our own so we don't have to keep going in for weight checks, paying that copay and all that. And also I kind of want to see how much he is eating when he's breastfeeding, because he's kind of been a lazy breastfeeder lately. And he's more interested in everything else than breastfeeding, and I try to like make sure it's quiet, make sure it's like calm, that there's nothing more exciting happening around him that he needs to watch. Like he was breastfeeding last night when Michael got home, and he just like wanted to watch what was dad doing, what was he doing over there, and what is that noise. And so curious, distracted baby. We also found out that he has silent reflux. That is one of the things that the speech therapist said, how he was just like holding his body and like being stretched out versus like curling up. He didn't like being curled up, and she said that most likely pointed to some reflux. And one of the tests we had showed like reflux happening. We're like, oh, maybe that's why he doesn't like being in his car seat, and maybe why he likes standing instead of sitting, and why like all these different things, why he doesn't like tummy time. He's on some medicine right now for the reflux, and I've already noticed a big difference. I think he's been on it for about a week. He doesn't scream every time he's in his car seat. He enjoys tummy time now. Like he'll like smile, babble, and he rolled over for the first time, and that's cool. He babbles and coos a lot. He drools a lot. He likes to chew on everything. He'll chew on his hands, his fists. He'll chew on my fingers, my knuckles. He's not a big fan of like chew toys yet. Like I got him this carrot, and he's just like not interested in it quite yet. He's like, this isn't your finger, Mom. I want your finger. As for me, postpartum hair loss is in full swing. Like I don't know how. Like I can't tell a difference just looking at myself, but the amount of hair that comes out in the shower, or if I just run my hands through my, like every single time, you can't see it, but there's so much hair, and there's just hair everywhere. We're getting a new vacuum cleaner today, and I'm so excited to vacuum up all of my hair. I have gotten 2 periods since having him, and I think my 3rd one is on its way, and they're pretty comparable to what they were before having him. Favorite products at the moment, I got a bunch. Well, I got one Dr. Brown's bottle with the level 2 nipple. Having to wash that between each feed, it was just too much. Now I have 5 of them. I really like the Dr. Brown's bottles. I got a hands-free pumping bra, which is like a love-hate relationship because I don't like pumping. My nipples don't like it. My nipple, like I never had issues breastfeeding, but my nipples and boobs hurt so bad with pumping. So hands-free pump bra, I gotta go get him. He's getting ticked. Wow. But yeah, all of my favorites kind of hold true still for him. I'll link previous favorite products that still hold true. Life's good, baby boy's good. We go to England next week, so I'm gonna be doing a what I packed for that trip video. Anywho, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!